welcoming you all to Manorama Horizon Civil Service Orientation Seminar. Myself, Sebin Pius. On behalf of Manorama Horizon, I invite Mr. Ankit Ashokan, IPS, who is one among the vibrant IPS officers in Kerala cadre. Along with him, Mr. Anjan Babu, Director, Fortune IAS Academy, Trivandrum. And it's my privilege to invite each one of you to the session, Manorama Horizon Civil Service Orientation Seminar, and welcome you all to the session. And the participants, please note, please raise your question via chat mode. Raise your question during the session, and questions will be answered through the session at the end of the Q&A. In the Q&A session. And welcoming you all. Over to you, sir. We can start.
Good evening, friends. First of all, congratulations to you for taking the initiative and making the effort to join the session. I understand that there are participants from across the globe. We have quite a few participants from Kerala, but also many from outside Kerala, and even like 100 participants from Gulf, and even a couple of participants from the US. So it's very interesting to see that something like Indian civil service has generated interest across the globe. So that was something quite interesting for both of us. Then again, so coming back to the topic, so we are having an orientation session with Ankit Ashokan sir. As you know, he's an IPS officer. Telling about him, he's someone who has studied in Navodaya school and then in GEC Thrissur. So someone who has done his education primarily in government institutions and then gone on to get the coveted post of IPS officer. So without much further ado, I'll hand it over to Ankit sir. Welcome to the session.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you for introducing me. So good evening, everyone. I think many of you are joining from many different time zones. So good evening, good morning, good night, whatever may suit you. So welcome to this session. And I think there are like close to 275 participants. It's a very good number. So today we'll have a session of close to like 1 hour, 15 minutes, something like that, where I'll just tell about something about myself, my training, my preparation, orient yourself, like little bit of introduction to civil services and all. So I think everyone is hearing me out. So can you just please put in the chat like what your education level is, like are you undergoing schooling now, or are you undergoing your college or your college pass outs, your aspirants, so I can just get a fair idea of what the audience is. Yeah, a lot of college students, a lot of +2, 8th standard, 7th standard, post graduation. Yeah. So yesterday also, before this session only, we had a discussion with Anton and Sebin. So we were expecting this kind of group only, a crowd. So I will try to say things and to orient each group. So like I will try to say things which will be helpful for people who are studying in school level, who are in the college, and who are like passed out and they are into full time of preparation. So saying something about myself, I cleared my civil service in 2016. I'm a 2017 batch IPS officer. I belong to Kerala and I was fortunate enough to get into the Kerala cadre. Now I am close to like 3 to 4 years in service now, and done my independent posting of a subdivision, which is after the training, IPS officer after the training. That is the first posting that someone gets. So I did 1 year of my independent posting of a subdivision. So that is a brief about me. I did my schooling and all in a boarding school called Navodaya Vidyalaya, which was it's a government-run, central government-run school in India. I did like my 6th to 12th in a boarding school. Then I did my college, BTech Information Technology. I got a job in a software company, did for 2 years. Then I decided to prepare for full time. Took a leave of like 1.5 year, prepared full time. Again went into a government service, worked there, prepared, combined, and that year only I was lucky enough to clear through. So first I will talk about my training. So as I told, like 2016 I cleared the civil services, 2017 I start my training. So civil services, all the civil services like IAS, IPS, IRS, IFS, anyone who clears, first they have to go a foundation course, which happens in the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, which is at Mussoorie. So many services come there, and it's kind of a foundation where you are like introduced into the civil services, like what your job is going to be. You get to meet a lot of people who are from all around India. You just see a mini India in that academy. 3 months of training, very nice experience, nice training, lot of exposure. And I think all of those people who are aiming to get into the civil services, Labasna or Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy at Mussoorie is it's a motivating factor. Everyone wants to go there and get trained and feel that training that all these people who have administered India, all these doyens of Indian civil services have been trained there. So it is a privilege to be trained there, and you get a lot of exposure. All like really, really good speakers, eminent personalities do come to speak to you. Even the Prime Minister visits you. Like lot of governors, like lot of the top class or the eminent personalities, bureaucrats, everyone comes there. You get an opportunity to interact with them. Like there are a lot of extracurricular activities that happen in Labasna, and particularly 1 or 2 things that I like still now keep close to my heart are the Himalayan trek that happened in India and the village visit that the training of the 3 months had. I'm just giving a brief about the training, and then I will connect what all these aspects were there and like how it is connected to what the present realities in India are, how they make you aware of the fact, and then you get into the field and you get to do something for the people, for the society, for the country. Then after that training of 3 months, then IPS officers are taken into National Police Academy at Hyderabad. That is a academy which trains the IPS officers. National Police Academy Hyderabad is a totally different ball game. It's not like Labasna. There you are trained to become a police officer, from a civilian to someone who has to live and work in a uniform job. So basically 2 aspects that the training. So I was saying that like where was it? Like there are 2 aspects that the National Police Academy concentrates on. One is the physical courage and one is the mental courage. Like this job, this IPS service in the police service, or a job as an IPS officer makes you do, demands from you certain things that you will have never done in your life. Maybe it is like fighting crime, going on combing to find out terrorists or Naxalites, or going into the forest to like search and cordon an area. So all this needs courage, both physical and mental courage. So mental courage is needed so that you stand in front and lead your men. Physical courage is needed because it's not like a job where you sit and push files, or it's not a 9 to 5 office job. You are in the field maybe continuously for maybe 24, 48 hours, like for 3 to 4 days, you will have to be out. So it needs a lot of physical courage to do things and to adjust to situations. So the training at National Police Academy Hyderabad equips you to like deal with all these things that you're going to face in the field. So directly from physical training of PD to horse riding, swimming, route marches of 40 kilometers and with battle load, weapon handling, bungee jumping, and rock climbing, rafting, you name it, whatever you can do in India as an adventure activity is part of the training that is being done there. So that actually helps you to, like, you in the training will do things that you never thought of you will be able to do. People swim, horse riding, jumping, you go on 40-kilometer route march with a battle load of 15 kg. You have to walk continuously for 9 to 10 hours. You get blisters in your foot, but still you keep on walking and you have to reach your target. So these are the things that help you to work in the field, because in the field policing is going to be tough. It is going to be physically demanding. It is going to be mentally challenging, and there are a lot of issues that you are going to handle. So the training actually prepares you for that. Actually, now let's come to the point of why civil services, like why UPSC or civil service as a career option. So as everyone says, as it is in the name itself, it's a service. It's not seen as a job. Okay, and like what you do as a civil servant is something that other jobs or professions are not, like, they don't get an opportunity to do that. Like fighting poverty as an administrator becomes one of your main goals, or like basic infrastructure, basic necessities to be given out to people. Fighting crime, solving crimes, fighting terrorists, securing areas, VIP protection. All these are like profession or jobs that, or tasks that are given to an exclusive set of people. It's not like out in the common job market where anyone can take that and do. So there is an exclusivity for that. Another thing is, like, India is a vast country and there are problems, like n number of problems. You take a region, there are problems which press that area, and as a civil servant you will be trained and you are expected to solve those problems, cater to the need of the people. So these are some things that makes this profession or this service different from others. And as in IAS, you get a wide variety of job roles, directly from district administrator to someone who is into a public sector undertaking, someone who is into like infrastructure projects, and you name it. IPS is a specialized kind of job, but still you get to do the state policing, where you have to do law and order, fight crimes, solve crime investigations, lead a huge force. You get to do the VIP protection, like you get to command a team where the Prime Minister of India is being protected under a team under you. So you get to work in the intelligence field like RAW and IB. So these are some things that only few people, or it's a niche area and it's like a very exclusive area. So that is what makes it very charming, or like people get attracted to it. And India as a country, like we are a huge population, 7th largest country in the world, and population is growing, lot of resources, lack of resources are there. So a lot of issues are there, and we need people, we need youngsters who are like, who have an idea, who have that feeling or that thought of that I also can contribute something which I have in me for the betterment of the society and the country. So my preparation, like I never prepared from a school, from my school days or from my college days. I started preparation after I got into the IT job, and I thought like I should give civil services a go, a try. That is why that is where I started preparing. I prepared. I first joined an academy for 7 to 8 months of coaching academy, so that I get a hang of it. Like what are the things, what is the syllabus, what text to be studied, how to go about the test series, mock tests, and all. After that 8 months, I prepared on my own for 1.5 years, and after that only in the next attempt I got through. So I will say that like now there are a lot of options, like you can go to an academy, there are online academies. Some people prefer to learn on their own, self-study, but I will like, some people do always ask me like, what is, why is it better to go to an academy? Is it necessary? I'll always say that like, if you decide to learn or start playing football and you buy the ball and you play alone, and you take the ball and go to the ground and start playing with other people. So in both the scenarios, which one is going to benefit you more? So it is like going with the group, you get to understand like what are people doing, like there are people who are in the field, who have written, who have cleared, so you get to interact about the process of the exam and you get a hang of it. So once you are getting the hang of it, you are into that stream, you can, once you are into the stream, you can row your boat fast, slow, whatever way you want, but you have to get your boat into the stream. So in a way, like getting into an academy or some online coaching or something orients you. It like maybe reduces the time of getting yourself oriented by half, or gives you an opportunity to like talk to someone when you are like having doubts and all. So that is one thing. I see some people are asking questions and all. So I'll just finish everything and then I'll take up questions. A lot of things about confidence to write IAS exams. What about IFS exam, age limit and all. So now coming directly to the preparation thing. Okay. First, I will talk about students who are studying maybe from 7th to 12th. Okay. So the people who are from 7th to 12th, who are in this webinar, you should understand that you have taken a very good decision to at least attend this webinar. Maybe you down the line, like after 5 to 10 years, maybe you will decide that civil service is career for you, not a career for you. But people who are studying in 7th to 12th, you should understand that this is the phase where you get enough time to develop your personality. Okay. Like now COVID is there, everyone is stuck in their house and everything happens online, like, and you are a generation who are like using a lot of gadgets and spend most of your time online. But you should understand that you should get out, play sports, engage in extracurricular activities, group activities, go to places, talk to people, get your exposure, do some physical activity, and cultivate hobbies. So all these small things that you do while you are a school going person, or from 7th to 12th, or maybe someone who is in college also, or like someone who is preparing also, like whatever duration of time you have to do all this. Because once you start preparing for civil service and like you clear 1 or 2 steps like prelims and mains, and then you go to interview, suddenly you feel like you needed to have a hobby, or like my personality needed to be like this or that. If you are now preparing, understand that at the end of this exam, your personality is going to be assessed. So you have to be equipped with that also. And that is the most hard part, because many people only think about their personality and how to better it at the fag end of the examination process. And by that time, it is too late. You say something which is not true. You're not confident about that. You lose marks, and the whole year of preparation and the process gets wasted. So school children who are like studying 7th to 12th, who are people who are in college, and some people who are like preparing full time, everyone should cultivate a hobby, play some sport, exposure, get yourself some exposure, travel to places and meet, and all this will develop your personality, and that is going to help you in a very good way in this exam. And the second part is of the studies part. People who are studying, children who are studying in 7th to 12th, like in school, you should understand the textbooks that is in your hand is a textbook that serious aspirants download from the internet and read it again and again. So what you are being taught in the class, try to engage with that, learn effectively, try to grasp it, not just go and write the exams and get your marks and pass from one class to another. If you have something of a long-term view, understand that what is being taught in your school books, like whatever history, maybe geography, it is science, basic science, everything. Read books, magazines. Like children who are from 7th and 8th, you don't need to like read Hindu and all, but you can read small newspapers, children's magazines, children's newspapers, and as you progress, as you cultivate your habit, you go and move into newspapers and magazines and current affairs and improving your GKs, and then you go into competitions and you build that habit. And for people who are in college and who are serious aspirants, first thing is you need to get your syllabus and the notification, because I see a lot of people asking what is the age limit, what is the subject, all those things people are asking. All these are answers that you can just get from a document which is there on the UPSC website. So you download that document, you go into the syllabus of prelims, mains, and your optional, whatever you are choosing or you are studying, you get into that. That is one part. Second thing is get into old question papers, because if syllabus is the lock, question paper is the key. Okay, and combination of both can only make you succeed in this exam. Otherwise, people keep on studying textbook after textbook, because in market there are n number of textbooks which you can keep on reading and you will never finish it. But you have to orient yourself. You have to be very specific in your preparation, rather than being an exam of how much to learn. You have to understand that this is an exam of elimination. You have to eliminate and understand what not to read. That is how you target yourself into a area where you can learn and recreate that in your exam, in prelims, mains, and interview. So newspaper reading is very important for the current affair building and the language building. Generally, people read a gist of it. I will say that read the newspaper, read at least for 15 to 20 minutes loud, so that you are reading it, you are doing your current affairs, you are learning for your mains. When you are reading out loud, you are actually preparing for your interview also. What happens is, like, everyone prepares till the interview, like by reading in the mind, and they have never spoken all these words which are like technical and into the jargons of civil service. And on the day of interview, this doesn't come to your tongue. So it's all about practice. So you have to think about, like, on that day when you are in front of the interview panel, what are you going to do? Okay, have you prepared well enough so that you will be confident? You may, like, you will be working for 7 to 8 hours of studying and all. You may feel dejected, exhausted, not confident, but you always think that, is your preparation for the day making you more efficient and more capable of standing on that particular day in front of the interview board? So that is the ultimate point where you have to, like, every single day's work adds up to that. So you have to think about that. Okay, get into like, learn your syllabus, learn your look into question papers, go through your material, study, do a lot of mock exams and exams. What happens is, like, people study a lot, they go into the syllabus, they look into previous question paper also, but what they don't do is they don't write mock exams. Like what I have seen, it happened to me also. Like, we are all afraid of failures. Like, if I write a mock exam of 100 question, and out of 100, what if I get 10 marks, 15 marks? What if I get negative? Okay, let it be. If you're writing the exam in your house and if you get a negative mark, let it be. What is a big deal? But if you don't write that, you are going to get that negative on the D day, on that prelim day, on the mains day. You are not going to be able to write, and you will get that negative mark. So do that mock, prelims mock, mains mock, take your interviews mock, and get criticized, get your wrongs and shortcomings pointed out. Let it be very painful to you, but it is always better to, like, get that pain beforehand only, and not on the day where you are going to be assessed for real. So I'll say that people don't do mock exams because they are afraid that what if they get very less marks, it will be very dejecting and you will not be able to work. Let it be dejecting. Let yourself be sad. Only from that pain and sadness you can, like, build your next step. So do mock exams, study, do mock, evaluate yourself. If you are falling flat, if you are not achieving that, again do your work and go ahead. So that is what I will say, that maybe, like, from real example, from my personal example, like, for first 2 attempts, I didn't do any mock and all. The same feeling, like, if I do mock, I get less marks, then I feel sad, then I don't study. I didn't clear. In my 3rd attempt, I religiously did my mocks. I was getting really bad marks in my first 10 to 15. then I gradually increased, and like by 30 or 35 mocks that you have done, your marks become stable. After that, even if you go write, simply you go and write one exam, you will get that marks. So it becomes a kind of habit. So that is the importance of writing mock and mains exam and everything, and getting that assessed and bettering yourself every day. Okay. Like again, the thing is like feedback is very important from your peers, from your friends, from some academy or some online platform where you can review each other's. Like people don't want to get feedback because no one loves criticism. Like if you're not going to get criticized, you are not going to get better. Write exams for children who are like in 7th to 12th, do some quiz competitions, go there, learn, try to compete, and let it like sometimes you may not succeed, but it is okay. Like, and once you don't succeed, once you get your failures, you become like you have that strength to move forward. So it doesn't help in any way that you are sitting idle and just studying and not getting yourself assessed. Okay. And again, it is what gets monitored and what gets assessed is what gets done. So if you are not doing your mocks and exams, that is going to pull you back like anything. Again, one more thing is like, one thing I want to talk about is like, it is a very challenging process in the sense like you have to study, there will be a lot of boredom, people will be like going here and there, but it needs a lot of motivation and courage to decide that this is what you are going to do and this will take this much amount of time from my life and I have to dedicate. From my personal experience, I'll say that my preparation journey, which was for 2 to 3 years, I think that was the most wonderful period in my whole life. The amount of books that I read, the amount of debates, the way in which like the exam makes you think and analyze things. No other exam will give that opportunity to you. And if you have taken a decision to prepare for this exam, very good. You are going to study, you are going to learn, you are going to be a person who is very, very aware, who can take logical, reasonable decisions. Maybe sometimes you will prepare and you will never write the exam. Or you will write the exam and you will come out with flying colors. But the process itself is so good that it will change you as a person. It will give you so much of knowledge. I was a person who never used to read books, but now if I don't read newspapers and books, I feel like I am cheating on myself. A guilt builds up over a period of time. So this exam preparation process has changed me from my inside. So now I love to read books in the sense that I am not a book nerd, but I love to read so that I get some new knowledge and it exposes me to something which is very new. And the fourth aspect is of weaknesses. Like every one of us who is like, including me, who is talking after clearing this exam and people who are like studying and who are serious aspirants who are taken off their time totally for this, everyone has their weaknesses. Like some people, like the sleep is their weakness, friends are their weakness, for some food is their weakness, someone to go out and roam around. Okay, so there are n number of weaknesses, and now in the internet age and the digital age, like people are hooked on to Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and whatnot, and like you are stuck in front of this computer. So although this gives an opportunity to learn a lot of things, but it is very easy to get like distracted and go away from your path. But the idea is like, you have to understand that your brain is also kind of a stupid thing. You can easily deceive it. Like just create. What I used to do was like, I used to during those times, Instagram and all was not that hyped. So we used to be on Facebook. So what I did was like, I created a Facebook account for myself in which all the newspaper feeds will come, all the ministries, Indian government ministry reports will come. Okay, all Al Jazeera, BBC, CNN and all will come. So whenever I feel bored, I log into Facebook and see. But whatever I was getting was like, again, a way of knowledge addition only. So in a way, I will like, whatever is my weakness or whatever was pulling me back, I tried to align it in such a way that it helps me. So nothing is like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube is not bad. Internet is not bad, but too much of anything is bad, and you have to use these tools to achieve your goal. You have to orient your preparation, your journey, your weaknesses, the way some people learn more by reading, some people learn more by watching interviews or debates or documentaries, some people learn more by seeing pictures. So there are tools for that. Like there are a lot of tools in this. So there are a lot of tools for this in this tech age. So you can use any of that. And so that is one thing. So always understand that, like, as people who are aspirants for the future batches of civil servants, you are in a very advantageous position. Like you can sit in any corner of the world and attend a webinar. You are the whole of the world and whole of the knowledge is at your fingertips. Use that. You are people who are like very empowered and very like skilled in using technology, and you are people who can learn new stuff very easily, and that is the new age. Like that is the new generation. So understand that you are privileged in a lot of aspects. You are privileged in the sense that you are able to attend this webinar, and this privilege and this opportunity should not be wasted. Use that to do good for someone, the society, or the whole country. Your knowledge, you may be sitting in like United States of America or the Middle East or other country in different time zone. You will be coming from a different culture, from a different educational background. You will be studying in Ivy League colleges and all. The amount of exposure, the knowledge, the systems that you see, you can bring that here and you can do that in India, and which is going to make our country a better place. So understand that, like, it's a process that you have to enjoy. Second is like you have to study, you have to evaluate yourself, you have to get criticized. Be sad, but use that sadness to go forward. Third is like weaknesses are for everyone, but understand that and use that into something which can like help you in clearing any exam, like this exam or something other, also some other exam or something other goal that you have set for your life. And fourth thing is like you are like very privileged people who are able to attend this webinar. You are skilled in the sense like you can use technology. You are from different places on the globe. You have a lot of exposure. You have seen systems, you have seen societies. Bring that, build yourself and develop your personality. Use that to clear this exam. So I think this is what I told for the last 20-25 minutes. A lot of questions are coming. So I think we'll go on to take questions. Anton, is there any area that I didn't touch upon? Like, do you want me to touch upon any other area, or was it?
I think one area which generally, which is much hyped, is the UPSC interview and the kind of questions that were specifically asked. So most people are more curious to know about the interview than the prelims and the mains. So if you could just tell maybe a couple of questions which was asked in the interview. I think that was also there in one of the questions.
One of the questions, yeah. Actually, I will tell you, like, there is a lot of hype around the UPSC interview, okay, but it is not like you will see all this Instagram and WhatsApp messages like some tricky questions. No one is going to ask you all that questions on UPSC, okay. It is a very direct personality test. It is not an interview also. It is called as a personality test, okay. Sometimes people go into interview and say, I don't know for all of the questions, and come out and but still get into the service, because that is not going to be a knowledge test. Look, prelims as a stage of exam checks whether you can remember what you have seen. Okay, you just have to read, you saw an answer or saw some knowledge, you go and check that in the prelims. Okay, second is the mains part. They are checking what you have read. Are you able to write it in your own words? Are you able to combine knowledge and present in your own words? Okay. And the third is the personality test. Like they are checking whether you can speak something. Maybe what they are asking you will have never have learned or read, but still you can say, I don't know. You can say confidently that I didn't read this, but I have read other things. Okay. I think so. That is one thing. And all these tricky, funny questions no one is going to ask. And I think even though UPSC interview is a very hype thing and like it can go like very unexpected also, but I feel there is only certain, like if you take a person and put out pointers, like for me it is like, I'm Ankit, I was born in this year in this month, okay, and I come from Kerala, a district called Kollam. I studied information technology in a boarding school. So these are all pointers or tags on me, and the question is going to come on that only. I live in an age of 2020 or 2021 February. What is happening in 2021 February around the world, around India, in Kerala? So I, as a person who is aware and alive, needs to know that. No one is going to ask like in 1947 February what was happening. No one is going to ask that. You can simply say that I don't remember or I don't know that. Okay, but you should know about yourself. Like what if they ask like, okay, Ankit, you studied information technology. What is the, like, what was that was happening when you were in college and what is happening now? For that question, I cannot say that I don't know. Okay, like because that is not a very specific knowledge question. That is a very experiential kind of question. Like as a student, I experienced some of information technology from 2007 to 2011, and as a aspirant in 2020, what am I experiencing about the technology? I need to compare that and give my opinion. You don't need to learn and study that. You need to be just aware and be calm and confident. So that is what is about interview. You, like every person has tags. You prepare on that tag. You stay focused, calm, and I think like you can put a good show.
Correct. So just adding to that bit, as Ankit told, it's a personality test, not an interview. The information and the knowledge part has already been tested by UPSC in the prelims and main stage. So, and when you say personality, that is a sum of your lifelong journey. So you will be, let's say, 24 or 25 when you go for your personality test, for your UPSC personality test. So they are interested in knowing what you are. They do not want any particular fact or information from you. They are looking to understand whether X, Y, or Z is an interesting person and whether he has the values that is suitable for the Indian civil services. So my too many advice to students who are especially in the school 8 to 12 would be to develop a holistic personality or an all-rounded personality where you explore a lot of avenues. So you may have an essay writing competition, a quiz competition, or if you are technologically oriented, maybe some coding competition, whatever it is. Try to explore all fields and find out whatever is good for you. And ultimately, when you're good in something, you will invest more time in it. And it's not mandatory that you need to write civil service. See, civil service preparation is a way in which you get to study a lot, as in from multiple fields. Ultimately, it's a generalist role, right? So you get to learn a lot of subjects, and that makes you very broad-minded. So keep your mind very broad and approach it in a similar way. So that will definitely enhance your personality. So I'll go on to the next question. One of the interesting questions is, all these things like what age I can write, what are the educational qualifications, all that is available on the website, as in it's also available on Fortune's website. We'll also be sending you a beginner's handbook. We'll be sending you a PDF which has all these details, as in what is the age cutoff, what is the educational qualification, what are the kind of books that you should read, what are the basic book set which you should read. All those things we'll be sending in a PDF which is called beginner's handbook. That'll be mailed to your mail address at the end of the session. So don't worry about that specifics. We'll address more general questions. So I think there was this question: how did you handle stress during the entire preparatory process?
Yeah, that is a and that is a very good question. Actually, generally, whenever I talk to aspirants, I touch upon that touch upon that topic because it comes after the weakness part. Look, and I think I forgot on that. Like this is as I told, it is a challenging journey in the sense like you have to study a lot. Maybe your success will come after 1 or 2 years. So there is going to be a lot of stress that is going to get built up. What I will say that is like, first thing is like, you have taken this decision to learn something and to get yourself tested. It is not a torture period, okay? Only because you are learning and preparing for civil service mean that you cut off from everything. You stop watching movies, you stop eating good food, you stop going out, you stop wearing good clothes, okay? So that is not the way that you handle this exam, okay? This is going to be a long process, like in the sense 1 year at least. People who clear in first chance also, at least they have to put in 1 year. So they have to, like, if you are preparing for, it's like any other job, you can say that. You prepare from Monday to Saturday, at least you have to give something for yourself on Sunday. Like what I used to do is like, even if I used to write a mock exam and I got like, last time I got 45 and this time I got 50, I used to treat myself like, maybe I'll go out to watch a movie alone, maybe go out and eat something sweet or eat an ice cream. That way, I told you, our brain is like very stupid. It doesn't know what we are. It is like we can conditionize it. Like we can orient it in such a way that it does what we actually want. In the sense like, so what, like if I write an exam, I get 40 marks. Then again I write an exam, I get 50 marks. But I know that 50 is not good enough. It is not going to make me clear. But I treat myself in a way that I know that there is certain part that I need to take care of. But okay, 10 marks I increase, that is good enough. I should give a pat on my back, okay, even if no one else is doing that. So treat yourself, keep friends, use that friends to bring out, like to hang out and discuss things and maybe go out for a tour. So this is one thing that you can do. That is, it's kind of very materialistic. Okay. Second thing is like getting into some kind of sports, some yoga, some meditation. I used to do some meditation and that really helped me. That is one thing that is going to help you a lot. And the third thing is like, you have your parents, you have your friends, you have your siblings. Some of you may be married, you have your partners. So these people are going to be the rock for you. Okay, they are going to support you. So like taking care of yourself is one. Second is like taking out, doing something which is giving you pleasure, like playing sports and watching movies and all that, and meditation. And third is like your support system, your parents, your siblings, your partners, friends. They are going to help you. So these are some ways that you can take out the stress. And if you are feeling stressed out of studying for like 7 to 8 hours, maybe 1 week you studied and you didn't get good marks, stop studying for 1 or 2 days, do something else, give yourself a break. That is what people do. No, like think about Usain Bolt, okay, who used to practice and run. He practices for 1 or 2 days, okay. It is like a mechanical kind of job where when he runs, his body gets burned out. He is trying to get the mark of 9 seconds. What if he doesn't achieve that? He will be frustrated. He will be disappointed. There is a lot of stress. What if he overdoes it? If he overdoes it, he is going to injure himself and he is not going to run ever again. So he will give a break. He will give a break to himself. Like if you're going to a gym, you go work out, you have to give rest for your body to recover. No, so your brain is also kind of an organ only. So you have to, if you are like studying, it is kind of gym work for brain. So you have to give that break period also. So that are some things that you can like use to stress, beat out stress. This is what worked for me. There are a lot of things there are on the internet and all. YouTube, you can talk to some people who are into meditation, yoga and all. They will help you out in a more professional and more scientific way. These are some things which work for me, and I feel like it is like very like some kind of go-go approach. So you can use that. So if it works for you.
Yeah, adding to that, I think there is no standard way to handle stress. I'll just chip in with a small anecdote here. See, last year, two of our aspirants who cleared was Safna and Devi Nandana. Safna Nasruddin and Devi Nandana. Both of them were in the top 100. So they were study partners, they were friends, but both of them were very different in the sense that Safna is someone who kind of preferred to be more, more to herself while studying, and kind of she locked herself out of Facebook and other social media. But Devi, on the other hand, was again studious, but she also found time for cycling, for meditation, for social media, and whatever she liked. See, her basic logic was, see, I am putting in X hours, but I also need to put in X hours and studies, but I also need to put in Y hours to do my other stuff, and I need to continue my life as normal. As in I can't feel that my body and my mind should not feel that I'm doing something out of the ordinary. So she tried her maximum to continue her life in the normal way. And she also definitely dedicated a lot of time in the reading room here to study, but she also kept some time to lead a balanced life. Safna, on the other hand, was more to herself, but she also had her breaks. She was someone who loved to go out to eat food, ice creams, and all. So all of them had different modes of venting out their stress. See, this exam process will, at least the exam process itself takes a year, and typically people take 2 or 3 years to clear the exam. So yes, there you are under a lot of stress, so you need to learn to manage it. And one more thing, supportive peer group. A supportive peer group is very important in the sense that, see, many people, maybe your relatives and your extended family, would not realize the kind of things which you have to go through, but the peer group who's studying with you would understand the stresses, and then they would be able to kind of support you much more. So one of the things I've seen is that a person with a good peer group generally handles stress well. So we'll go on to the next question. I think the question was, is the training and the mode of preparation the same for IAS and IPS?
Actually, the training is totally different for IAS and IPS, because IAS and administrative service, so they are trained in that way. Police service is totally a uniform job, so you are trained in a way where you are like trained into weaponry, firing, managing a huge number of force and leading your men and all that stuff, laws and all that. And that is the training part. Preparation for this exam is the same. You cannot prepare for IAS and you cannot prepare for IPS. Like, your options can be different in the sense, like, you put IPS above IAS or IAS above IPS, but you have to clear this exam, and there is a set syllabus and set question paper, so you have to do it like that only. So that is what it is about.
So someone asked, sir, I'm a chartered accountant. I resigned the job and started preparation from June 2020. Is there any possibility to crack civil services?
So June 2020, you started preparing, and the next prelims is going to come in June 2021. Yes. So there are like 4 months ahead of you. There's a good enough time to clear prelims and you have prepared from June 2020. You are prepared for main also. There are good chances if you prepare well, if you do what has to be done, and keep yourself very, very oriented. I think there are good chances that you can clear. Like, a lot of people clear in 1 year. It is not like that there is a lot to study and you can only clear in 2 to 3 years. People clear in 1 year.
Yes, so definitely you can clear. So just make sure that in case you are someone who is doing self-study, please do take a mock test series. As Ankit explained earlier, it's very important that you take a mock test series and understand your strengths and weaknesses and improve on your weaknesses, so that you don't actually commit it on the D-Day. You make your mistakes well beforehand. Then there's a question, can you tell me which is your second language? So I think it's your second language. I think they're asking about the language paper.
Language paper. That is generally that you take your mother tongue or whatever you are comfortable in. It will be asked only for 10th standard level. So anyone can like just brush up their knowledge and they can, there's nothing big about it. You will clear that. Like,
Someone has a specific question about Indian Forest Service, as in what is the difference in preparing for Indian Forest Service?
Yeah, actually, Indian Forest Service, the prelims is the same. Generally, because the seats, the number of vacancies that are notified for the Forest Service are less. So the cutoff for the Forest Service is generally high. So people who are opting for Forest Service will be the top scorers in the prelims. And for Forest Service mains, there are two optionals, and it is totally different from the Civil Service optionals. And there is a restriction on the combination and type that you can take. So that is all given in that notification only. So, and you don't have all the GS papers, you only have one essay paper and one GS paper, if I'm correct, Anton.
Yes,
you can correct.
yes.
And there is one English paper is there. So, and again, interview is there. And then there is a physical test where you have to cycle for 15 to 20 kilometers and walk for 25 kilometers, I guess. But everyone eventually clears that because you need to like practice for 1.5 months only. Physical and all, you can do that. But the part is like you prepare your optional, 2 optionals and all. It's a little hard. But if you are like oriented towards Forest Service and you want to clear that, prepare more for like prelims, because the cutoff is going to be high for you, and keep your optionals like prepared thoroughly, because they are going to be the trump cards which will like boost your marks and you will come into the top for the rank list.
Yes. So basically, the prelims for civil services and forest service, both as in all other services, the prelims is the same thing. But for forest service, the mains and the interview process and the physical test is different. So once you have a good score for the prelims, then you can look for the mains and personality test of the forest service. Then again,
yeah, Anton, one question it is coming again and again is like how to revise a big syllabus again and again. So I will tell that.
Sure,
okay.
Sure.
Look, this is kind of an orientation session. So like as Anton is working in this field and he's a very like expert in this field, you know that like every part of this has to be taken. Like prelims, we can take a 3-hour session. Mains, you can take a 3-hour session. And interview, you can like take a 3-hour session. So like all these questions are coming. So I'll just say that this question is like how to prepare a vast syllabus for prelims, for mains, and for interview. This is kind of very generic. So I told you, like when you are preparing, you have to understand that what you are going to do on that day when you are going to stand in front of the examination hall or in front of the mains examination hall or waiting for your interview. What are you going to do? Okay, look, every day if you start writing one paper, and on the day of the prelims you will have 365 papers. Okay, will you be able to read everything before just getting into the examination hall? No. So you have to understand that your preparation has to be exhaustive. You have to cover everything, but it has to be crisp, and it has to be comprehended, or like it has to be made brief in such a way that on the examination day of prelims in the morning you will get 1.5 hours in front of the examination hall. You would, because you would have reached earlier, you would be revising. You should be able to get through 100 or 120 A4 sheets. That should be your target to revise. For mains also, like GS paper 1, GS paper 2, you think that on that day morning what you are going to do. You cannot like I studied like you cannot say because I studied sociology, I have like 3 big bundle of book and I am going to take everything. If you want to take all of your notes to the examination hall, you better take a small mini lorry or mini auto. So that amount of books and notes you will have. So make everything crisp. So like there are a lot of techniques like mind maps and flow charts, and like you know best how you can write your own notes in a very good way. So I'll say that reduce and make it like a concussion where it is very dense. And so you just see it, because on the day of exam, it is all visual memory. No one is going to read through all the what you are. You just flip through and see it, and that short memory is going to help you. So make your notes in such a way.
Yes, I was just quickly scrolling through the questions. So one of the questions which was repeated was, how do you choose your optional and what was your optional?
Okay, my optional was sociology, and so my optional was sociology. I didn't study sociology as a graduation subject, or I didn't have any background in that. I just took it because I could relate to it in a very easy manner. But I also, like you have asked this question, I also asked many people how to select the option. So first thing is, like, you take out the syllabus of all the optionals that are available in UPSC. When you read the syllabus, you will find out certain subjects connect to you. Like, these things you have heard, maybe you remember from whatever you have studied in your school. So like when I was going through, I took out zoology, geography, and sociology because I liked biology when I was studying in my +2. So I was able to connect to the zoology subject, and I liked little bit of drawing of all these diagrams and all. So I took that one. Second is geography, because again drawing and little bit of connection from the schooling, and then sociology because sociology was like very generic, and so I kept that. So 3 subjects I selected. Then I went into the syllabus in depth, like what. So I found that sociology, geography, and zoology, it is like little vast. Sociology syllabus is less, but still I have not.
So I'll just quickly take a couple of questions, general questions. See, one of the questions which I see often repeated in this chat is how much time does it take to prepare? As in, there are a couple of questions, in how much time I can finish this course, how much time I should study per day. See, not everyone starts at the same level, right? So it all depends on how much knowledge you have beforehand. So people who are in the age group standard 8 to standard 12, if you can start gaining knowledge, start being intellectually curious, start reading newspapers, start asking questions as to why certain things are happening around you, then you have a head start. Once you cultivate the habit of reading the newspaper, you have a head start. And when you come into the final stage of preparation, as in the year in which you are going to finally write the exam, you definitely have a head start over the others who hasn't read newspapers and aren't quite conversant with the things happening around the world, right? So people who are in standard 8 to 12, please start reading the newspapers. I'm pretty sure your parents would have told you the same. So, but please take it seriously. Do glance through it and at least try to read the editorial if possible, but at least skim through it. Even if you don't understand the editorial completely, try to start cultivating the habit of reading editorials. And to people who are in the college, see, one of the first steps, as we mentioned earlier, is to get a good hang of all your NCERT textbooks, the textbooks which you have studied in 8th and 10th. And then when you get to the final stage, as in your final 1 year of preparation, you have to put in at least 8 to 10 hours generally. See, it again varies depending on what is the knowledge level from which you started off. But typically 8 to 10 hours a day should be good enough if you're honest to yourself. See, what happens many a time is we think that we are studying because we sat through for 8 to 10 hours in a particular place, but we don't put the quality 8 or 10 hours into our studies. So once you're honest to yourself, 10 hours a day should be good enough. I think Ankit has joined back.
So what I was saying is like regarding thing. So you select whatever you feel like you have connection to by seeing the syllabus. Then you go in depth to the syllabus. Then you go and check out whether what the questions are being asked, whether it is directly to the syllabus or something out of the blue they are asking. Go to the questions. Then you maybe can eliminate one. And then you go out and see where there is a class available or learning material or resources are available. So you go out there and you say that, oh, this option has got good learning material and good classes that is there, and you see the previous trend of marking and like people getting into the UPSC by selecting this subject. So in a phased manner, in a very scientific manner, you have to select that and you opt that. So for me, like I selected it like that only. I was able to eliminate geography and zoology because the syllabus were pretty large and there were not good materials available at that time, and no faculty or someone who can help me learn the subject. For sociology, I found that it was like very easy to read and understand, and there was some faculty which was available, and a lot of notes and material were available online. So I used that, and so that is how I selected sociology and took it for my exam.
There seems to be a very specific question from Saurabh Nandan. The question is, sir, is eyesight a parameter for IPS? If so, could you brief it, sir? As in, he has asked it a couple of times.
Okay, actually, eyesight is a parameter in the sense like there is a correct eyesight which can be corrected. I think by correction also you should get 6/6. I guess that is what. But like it is again very specific, and I think it is there in the UPSC notification. So all these parameters like how much height you should have, how much eyesight you should have, all these are given there.
There are also a couple of questions on what is Indian Foreign Service, and whether the preparation for Foreign Service and IAS is the same.
Yeah, actually, as earlier I told, like all these exams, like there are 23 services which are being selected out of this Union Public Service Commission's civil service examination. All of these may differ in the job profile or the service profile, but the way in which you prepare to get into any of this is the same. If you want to get into foreign service, doesn't mean that you prepare in a different way. Maybe you can orient your personality in such a way that you can put your first option as foreign service and say that from my childhood I had a dream of being a diplomat and like learn about history, read a lot of diplomatic and this international relationship books, and maybe pick up a language. Like children who are in school and all, if you want to become a foreign service officer, it's a very good time. Like you are attending this webinar, maybe you can pick up a language. Like everyone will be going through everyone will be having a mobile phone or a tab or a computer. Like there are a lot of applications which help you learn languages and all with no cost. So you can just download that and learn it. So that is how you orient your personality towards becoming a foreign service officer or a police service. Like if you want to become into police service, you get into NCC, you go into like scouts and guides and do a lot of adventurous kind of, you mold your personality like that. You are into administrative services, again you like generic kind of things. But that is your personality part. How to your personality orient yourself. Second part is the preparation part. In my initial 20 minutes only, I told that there are two parts. One is orienting yourself, and second is preparing. Preparing is the same for everyone. Everyone has to write the same exam, prelims, mains, and interview again. Interview is where your personality or your orientation is checked. So this way you can help yourself.
There are a couple of questions like which subject or which stream should I choose for my +2? Which stream should I choose for my undergraduation if I'm preparing for Indian Civil Service?
Okay, so what I will say is like this is a very like funny kind of question. I always feel like civil services is an exam. Okay, so you like with good amount of preparation, correct guidance, and lot of effort, you can clear it. Okay, but only to clear this exam, you are going to select a subject. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so you have to like. Sorry about the light. Have to like you have to find a subject you will get like a connection to, like you feel like you want to study history, so you may take history. You think that you are good at science, you will take so I'll stop my, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so what basically Ankit was saying is that, see, choose any subject in which you think you will excel in. Do not choose any particular subject only for the requirement of this particular examination. Choose a subject in which you are comfortable in. Choose a subject in which you think you can excel in. See, ultimately, you are the person who is going to study the subject for 3 or 5 years. So you should be comfortable in that subject, and you should feel that you should be able to excel in that subject. Writing this exam is secondary, but we as in have a bit of love towards the subject, and then maybe you can think about taking that as an optional or not. All that things are secondary, but for your undergraduation or your +2, choose whichever suits your taste. Ankit is back.
Yeah, actually, what Anton said is like very, very correct. Like that thing becomes secondary because you have to select what you like and what you think you can better at. Because what if you select something which you don't like and you wanted to clear civil services and you didn't clear civil services also? Ended up with nothing. You have learned you didn't like and you didn't clear civil services also, and now you cannot make a career out of the subject that you studied. So learn something which you like, which you can connect to. You think that this is what you want to do in your life with. Maybe if you don't get into civil service, you go into research or do some good for the society with this. So that is one thing. So that is very important. Don't just select any subject only because you want to get into civil service. Get something or do or select some subject where you feel that you can excel. One
One
thing I feel.
sorry, Ankit. Yeah, sorry.
No. Please.
No, I was just going on to the next question. If you have completed it.
Yes.
So one question which I think is slightly peculiar to this group because we have a lot of people joining from abroad also. See, one of the questions was, what about the language paper? Because I think they have some concerns about they have not studied Malayalam well. The second language, they are slightly weak compared to people who have studied in India. Would you want to take that?
Actually, like generally people I like, as far as I know, like maybe some person who is studying in US or like UK, they may not have a language like Hindi or Malayalam, but people who are in Middle East and all, Hindi and Malayalam being taught in their school. So for the Middle East people, like it doesn't need, like you don't need to take Malayalam or any other like regional language. You can take Hindi also as your second language. That is one thing. For the people who don't learn any language, if you want to take civil service as a career and you want to clear this exam, it will be good that you learn a language or Indian language. You know English, but that is not going to work. People like this exam know a regional language because you are going to work in the field. Talk to people who are like from the very grassroots. They don't know English, they don't have internet connection, they don't have maybe electricity also. About their problems in a very simple manner in their regional languages, okay, in their mother tongues. You will have to learn one language. And it doesn't mean that if you learn Bengali, you will be posted in Bengal. No, it just shows that you have an aptitude to learn an Indian regional language. And because everything has a common origin of in the Indian subcontinent, like you have learned a regional language and services. Then again, when you get into the service and you are given a cadre, a state to work, you will be taught another language. Okay, because cadre, I didn't have to learn another language and ask that in my training. But I took Bengali as a second subject during my police service training. I learned that, so I can read a bit of Bengali and all. So maybe like this diversity that our country has, as a civil servant, you have to inculcate that in you. You have to accept that and embrace that. So all your training will be about that. But clearing this exam, you need a like need a language. And as I told, if you are someone who is an Indian who is in US, has not got an opportunity to learn any language which is Indian, you can go and download an app and just there are a lot of apps which they teach Malayalam, Hindi, Bengali, Hindi. Hindi is like very easily available. Learn Hindi and it is on 10th standard level they are going to so it will be pretty easy.
Correct. The bottom line is basically you have to write a English and then a language paper. And if at all you think you have a weakness in any regional language, you can start preparing now, as Ankit pointed out. I think one of the questions is, see, there are people who are working and they also want to pursue civil services. So we have a very wide range of audience today. eighth standard and people who are currently in work. So how can
Yeah.
how can one manage work and preparation together?
Look, I am a person who worked uh, during the year which I cleared civil service. So, like people who are working, you should understand that you have a very like there will be people who are like students, school going children, college. They are dependent upon their parents, or maybe monetary other things. And there are who are like running on their own. And like when you are employed, you are independent in the way that you can take your own decisions. Like you work for this much months and you take a leave of 2-3 months. And so what I used to do is like I had a job of Monday to Friday. So I used to go on classes on Saturday and Sunday for my optional, and I used to prepare like every evening, maybe from 7 to 10 or 11, and in the morning but from 6 to 9. This is the only time that I used to prepare. And Saturday, Sundays, I used to prepare like majority of the time. But still, I'll keep some time to go out for a movie or something. And the amount of money that I used to get from my job, I used to invest hell lot of the money in my preparation. Whatever, like if you're doing a job, like consider yourself as a okay, and you think that certain things are not productive to you, like washing your clothes or maybe traveling in a faster way. Okay, outsource that. Okay, tell like give your clothes out, save some time there. Okay, hire a cook, keep a cook. Okay, hire someone to clean your house. Okay, invest that money into that. I used to do that. Okay, like I used to outsource everything. And like if there is an option of getting into a plane and going somewhere where you can save 3 hours in your journey, do that. Okay, get yourself gadgets like tab, mobile phone, headsets, where you use a lot of digital things to learn. Like in office, I used to go with my tab and learn and do MCQs on the online platforms. So in a way, like when you are employed, you are independent, you take your own decisions, and you are, because you are pretty much on your own, you have a lot of like leeway to work around and explore. So that, I think that is a very good position or a situation to be in when you are preparing. So
Yes.
that is one.
Yeah. So here in Fortune IS Academy, we also have a online working professional batch. So something which I've observed here is that the people who are currently working have that extra confidence. So for them, time is a premium. They don't have the luxury of time. But because they have a safety net, because they know that if they do not clear this exam, that's not going to be their end, and they have a pretty good safety net, they have a lot more confidence in preparing for the exam. It has so happened that students who tried full time could not clear it that year, but next year they joined a work and then they came out with flying colors. One of the primary reasons was that they were more confident and they know, okay, they already knew their stuff, but then they were able to more confidently express themselves during the examination. So I think in a way, it could be a blessing in disguise also for some people. Yes, so I'll go on to the next question. I think someone, Sharath, has put in the same question many times. How much height is required for IPS? Sharath, please Google it. I think it's somewhere around 165 centimeters, but you can always Google it. How much rank should I? Yeah, there was this question about how is the cadre allocated? As in you told you were posted to Kerala. So how is the cadre allocated for IS and IPS?
Actually, when you are going for the interview, like once you are going to write the mains, they are going to give you a detailed application form where you have to fill the options of your service and the states that you will prefer to work in. Now, so you put your options like anything, like entrance examination, or when you are going to get into a college, you will put options. No, you'll put like that, and depending upon your option and the rank that you are getting, like you may be the first person who has opted for that state, but still you may be in a like not in like top 100 or top 200, but you will be a person who has put that option as for that state. You may be getting some reservation of due to your economic situation, or maybe your religion, or maybe because of your caste. So all these factors play out, and then the cadre is allocated.
Okay. So here's an interesting question. Is it tough to be a female IPS officer?
If it was tough to be a female IPS officer, there will not be any female IPS officers in India. No? And I think starting from Kiran Bedi, like if we have heard Kiran Bedi, about Kiran Bedi, seen Kiran Bedi, and now if we ask this question, I think the message needs to go more, or people need to like read. So I think it is not at all difficult or tough to be a female IPS officer. In my batch, when I trained, like there were female officers, lady officers who were like mother of one or like two kids, people who had just come out of like delivery after 7-8 months, and they trained with us, the male folk, and like the gentlemen probationers. Like they used to walk 40 kilometers, they used to run 16 kilometers, they used to swim, they used to bungee jump, rock climbing. Like all the lady probationers in all of these batches do all that is being like being done by the male probationers or the male officer trainees. So it is not at all tough. So but like it is true in the sense that as a woman you will have your added responsibility of like taking care of your child and all, but that is a personal choice. Like in today's situation, in today's scenario, it is not like it's the household is a shared responsibility of the husband and the wife. The male and female equally take part in taking care of children, doing the household chores and everything. So in today's situation, I think it is not at all tough to be uh, a female IPS officer, but I think like lady officers are much more advantageous in police service because it's a very stressful job, and keep their calm like anything. They are cool-headed. They are not at all like they can handle emotional situations like tense situations very well, and they have that connect to people like uh, to women folk who are coming into dharnas and jadas, and like to men folk also. Like people really listen to women officers. So I think like you have more advantages than a male officer. That is what I feel. It's not at all tough.
Next question is something like, is doing a post graduation in an optional subject a good idea?
Like one thing is like what is our goal? Like we want to clear this exam. Okay. I have seen like don't take it in a negative way. Don't feel that I am like cutting you out or demotivating you. Look, our goal is to clear this exam. For that, you have to study a optional in 1 year and write the exam for which UPSC asks the questions. Okay. Generally, postgraduate courses in India are for 2 years. Okay. So what taking any postgraduate course will do to your mind is like you will feel that okay, in 2 years I will complete the syllabus, and in 2 years I will 2 years I will uh, clear civil services also. Like doing an PG is good in the sense that if you do a sociology PG, you get a good learning resource. You attend the classes, and then you come. You are a master in that subject. You've learned that for like this much amount of hours, and you can put in good. But never, I will not suggest like uh, doing civil service preparation and then doing a PG together. Like I'll say that if you're going to take civil service preparation, civil service preparation is very intense, very fast. You don't have time to go and write. Like people who are preparing for civil services, they sometimes what they will do, they will write exams from like uh, exam, +2 qualification, 10th qualification, degree qualification, like every exam they will write. Think about in a month you are getting 2 to 3 exams which you have to travel, go, come back, prepare, orient for that. Then you orient yourself for one exam, then you come and orient back to civil service. Then you go for another exam, orient towards bank exam, come back again to this track. So this is kind of very like it's kind of haywire, kind of it will go haywire. So I'll say that keep your focused. If you want to have a backup plan, take one exam. It's like very close. The syllabus is very close. Like you always see that NABARD and all those kind of exams, RBI and all have a syllabus which is very close to civil services. So you just need to orient yourself in like for 1 month maybe, and you go write that exam and come back and again start preparing for UPSC. What generally people do is like they will keep on filling applications. Every second week they will have some exam. So when we are preparing, we will see one chap who is like going every other week to write one exam. So he is getting out of this track very frequently. So he will never be able to be in that correct channel. So like it is a good option in the sense like you will have a PG, but is that your ultimate goal to have a PG? No, no, right? You want to clear this exam, and if you want to really get a PG, then do that. Don't think that because I studied civil services and I took a PG, I ended up having a PG. That is not going to help you in any way. That is what I feel. To be very frank and very blunt, that is what I feel.
Yeah, I think we have come towards the fag end of the session. So maybe we'll take, maybe we'll answer for 2 more minutes and then maybe we can conclude the session. Ankit, is that okay? Yeah. So one of the questions was that is the syllabus for Kerala Administrative Services same as that of Civil Service Examination? So yes, so Kerala Administrative Service Examination, and as you know, just recently happened. The first thing just recently happened. So there is a lot of overlap of the syllabus with UPSC syllabus. And in fact, many of the students who were preparing for UPSC did clear the Kerala Administrative Service first stage also. But that said, there is also quite some more to study in the sense that you have to study a bit more about Kerala. Since it is being conducted by Kerala PSC, there is a syllabus which pertains to Kerala history, geography and all. So you'll have to study that also. But yes, so there is no, the answer is there is no complete overlap. But yes, some portions which you study for UPSC will help for Kerala Administrative Service also. So I think we'll go to the last question. I don't know, as in this question has been repeated so many times. That's why I'm taking it. We have in a way kind of answered this question already. The question is medical fitness required for IAS in Labasana? Okay.
Yeah, actually, there is there is a general medical performer that is given that you have you undergone a heart surgery or do you have any other problem and all that stuff. But like unless even like look for IAS, even if you are physically like disabled or like physically different, you have a quota for that. So that doesn't matter there, right? For IPS, surely you cannot have any like physical, you have to meet certain physical criteria, and if you have some problem which is like too medically complicated and you feel that that is going to hinder you in your in IAS or IPS, inform call, or like I like some people will have got a, like suppose a person has got an accident and he's got fractured and he had to put a plate and then he's not able to walk or very, it will be better for him not to select IPS and then go into the training. So you have to know yourself and be aware of yourself. So that is something. So and otherwise, all these things are on the notification and on the syllabus on UPSC website only. So as this was, and I will just want to say one thing.
Sure.
Like we today touched upon areas like which we are addressing students from 8th to 12th standard, people who are in college, who are aspirants, who are working aspirants. I think somewhere around in this 350 there will be parents also, and who will be logging in their names of the children. So I'll just want to address them also in the sense that like parents should understand that this is, it's a very competitive field. Students, aspirants need to work very hard. They need to put a lot of effort, and parents are, should be, and are the people who should support them. And it's not only for civil services, like maybe it is your dream or your interest into civil services, but your kid doesn't, or your like son or daughter doesn't want to be into civil services. Understand that you are the only person who will support your child in their dreams. So whatever be it civil services or maybe anything else like dancing, or he wants to be a chef or a photographer, anything. So you understand that like you are the only person who will support him wholeheartedly and with all the effort. So whatever your child's ambition, it is like with civil services, any other profession, support them unconditionally, love them unconditionally, and that is what you can do. That is what I will say.
Thank you, Ankit. On the concluding note, I would like to say, I think we have covered majority of the questions, but maybe there were some questions which we could not answer because of paucity of time. There are also some questions pertaining particularly to the courses in Fortune IAS Academy. So kindly call the reception directly. You will get all your queries addressed there. I didn't think it would be a right forum to publicly address all the specific questions and dates. So thank you again. Thank you, Ankit, again. Thank you, Sebin and Manorama, for giving us this opportunity to address and arrange this workshop. So I think that's it from our end. Over to Sebin.
Thank you, sir. It's time to winding up our session. On behalf of Manorama Horizon, I thank Mr. Ankit Ashokan IPS and Mr. Anton Babu for this wonderful and fruitful session. And thank each one of you to attend this session, and wishing that your dreams will come true in the near future. And thank you all, and thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best. Bye.